There you go. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are now live with Etchr Studio. All right. So, hello, everybody. My name is Kathleen. I will be your host for today's free live demo with the one and only Mike Hendley. Yay! So, I'm with Etchr Studio, and welcome to today's free live demo. This is part of the launch of his course with Etchr, and this is about drawing animals in graphite. So, although this is mostly about drawing animals in graphite, Mike will be mentioning that most of the techniques that you can learn here or in this course can be applied into other things. So, that's really interesting. So, before we begin, just a few. Sorry, I got distracted in the chat. I can see people in the chat. Hi, everyone, says Catherine. Hi, Judy. Awesome. All right. So thank you so much for joining. For those who don't know Etchr Studio, we are an art learning platform and we work with art teachers across the globe. And part of this is part of the programs that we do with Etchr Studio. So, and also if you're interested to know more about us, feel free to join or check out our website, etchrstudio.com. It's kind of like an art Netflix. So all of art related contents, interesting stuff there. And before we begin, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. I have all the permission from Mike to interrupt him at any point. So feel free to type your questions. If it's related to what Mike is doing at the moment, we'll go ahead and ask them. And if it's not, then we'll go ahead and reserve those questions for our live Q&A later on. And also, I will be dropping the reference photo for our live demo today right here. And lastly, make sure you stick till the end because we are going to be doing a giveaway. So if you will be sticking with us till the end, or if you're going to be joining us or watching with us, that's going to be amazing. Make sure you're live or active in the chat till the end so that you can be eligible to join our giveaway. So with that being said, I'm going to hand the floor to Mike to talk about his upcoming course and what we're going to be doing today. So, Mike, it's going to be all you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Hi, everyone. I see you in the chat. And it's nice to see all of you here. We are, today we're going to be doing a chickadee, and I'm going to try and get through the whole drawing, but I'll have the reference up beside me, and we can work together on that. And as Kathleen mentioned, I'll be able to answer questions. I do thank Etchr for the opportunity and in being able to share what I've learned and being able to distribute it in a platform like Etchr Studio in a way that allows you to kind of follow along, get the references. There's PDFs associated with the course and everything. So the intent with this course, and it's taken me a while because I had some sickness challenges last fall. So I'm thankful for Etchr for moving it. But my intent with this was to really focus on animals. We all see them. They're all around us. They're always available to us as a matter of references. And I thought it would be an interesting exercise to kind of go through and explore what it's like to draw animals. And so the course is set up into 5 sessions, and each one is on a Saturday. It will be, they're about 90 minutes each. And the first one, I talk about the introduction to graphite drawing. So I'm going to go through kind of all the tools I use. I'm going to talk about tools I don't use, but I'm going to talk about all the tools. And so for the first session, we are going to be doing something called a blind contour sketch. So that's going to be kind of fun. But I don't want you to feel that you need to go out and buy everything for this course. All you really need is a pencil, a blender, an eraser, blue tack, or some kind of kneadable eraser, and paper. Now, you can get better pencils, you can get better paper, but you don't need to buy all the tools necessarily to do the course. And so that's the first week. I'll talk about the tools. The second week, I'm going to talk about basic animal anatomy. So I'm not going to go through kind of details about muscle structure and the bones and explaining kind of all of that, how that works, because that's not something I've done. But what I do think there's value in is understanding what's under the skin, what's under the feathers, and things to be mindful about. For example, eyes are round, and so when people try to make them to have the eyelids over the eye, they tend to focus too much on that, and understanding that the eye is actually round, and to be able to understand that because it's round, it tends to capture light differently. It reflects light. When you're looking at horses, we're going to be doing a horse leg in one of the classes, and being able to understand where the muscles are and the subtlety of shadows in a muscle that may appear closer to you because it's coming out from the animal a little bit deeper. So it's that kind of anatomy that we're looking at. I'm not going to go through, we're not going to draw a skeleton of a cat or something like that, because for me, I haven't focused on that. I haven't spent a whole lot of time, and I just kind of want to. I just want to explain that I'm not an animal expert. I know some really well, but the anatomy is I think important and exciting. The next would be proportion and composition, and so looking at understanding proportion of the drawing that you're working on, the proportion relative to the object itself or relative to the background, and understanding composition too. So I'm going to be using my iPad to explain how to play with composition, the rule of thirds, and being able to move things around in the scene to kind of bring more attention to the subject that you're working on, or lead people through the drawing a little bit. And so composition, I feel, is a little bit of a black art. There are some fairly clear rules when it comes to the rule of thirds. I will talk about the Fibonacci sequence, which is kind of it. I spent like 2 days just researching Fibonacci sequence, and I got lost in it. But we'll talk about what you can apply to the drawings that you're doing, even just in a sketchbook. And I'll show you my Etchr sketchbook a little bit later. Depth and dimension is something that we're also going to explore. So, the advantage with pencil is that all you have is value. I mean, you have shape, but you have value. And so when you're looking at working on watercolor or oil, which I'm exploring now, there's an opportunity to kind of apply what you've learned in graphite, because all you have is that. You don't have color at all. And so there's a real importance in using graphite to be able to show that depth. I mean, that's often what I see happening when people start out in pencil, is that they're disappointed with the depth. The chest of the bird isn't, it looks flat, and that's because they haven't shaded where the light isn't. And so understanding how to render that, how to render the fact that if, once again with a bird, if the wing is sitting above the down part of its feathers, making sure that you get a soft shadow underneath there, and that pulls the wing out of the image a little bit and pushes the bird back. So that's the kind of stuff that we'll be exploring with depth and dimension. And then the last one, which is kind of exciting, is exploring common animal textures. And so we're going to be looking at things like elephants and turtles and all kinds of animals to understand the patterns that exist in that. I mean, as humans, we're always looking for patterns. You go to an art gallery or an art museum, and you look at something and you see that you're trying to connect it to something you already know. You look up at the clouds and you see a horse or a dragon. It's because we're trying to find the textures, we're trying to find the shapes. And what I'm going to talk about is looking at those textures in a way that you abstract the animal out of it. And so you're not thinking about turtle skin, you're thinking about a rough texture. And what I noticed today, because I'm actually working on a milkweed plant that I'm drawing in pencil, is as I'm drawing the husk of the milkweed pods, it's like drawing turtle skin. And so that's the kind of thing we're trying to achieve here, is this idea of abstracting away the animal and focusing on the texture, whatever it may be. And so I'm pretty excited about this course. Those are the 5 classes. And I'm trying to be quick here so we have lots of time to draw. And there'll be a live feedback session after that as well. So I'm going to ask you to take on whatever you want. I have most of the reference, I think all the reference photos are mine. And so you're welcome to use them as you please. But you could use something that you have yourself. And I would ask you to kind of take that on after the 5th class. And for the feedback session, if you want to submit it, I can take a look at it and provide some feedback, some opportunities to improve it, or areas to address when you move on to the next drawing and the next drawing. So there is homework with each class as well. And if you happen to miss a class, it will be available as a recording. So I know for some of you, 10 o'clock on a Saturday may be challenging. So if you happen to miss one, you can hit it on the Sunday or the Monday and just be ready for the next week. And these are evergreen. So when we're done, they're going to be in the Etchr studio. So if you want if you've paid for it and you want to take the class again, just take the class again. And I've done that with a lot of stuff on YouTube and through other video formats where you watch it and it's like, okay, I'm doing it. And then you do it. And then you go back 6 months and you realize there's things that I forgot to learn because I wasn't at that phase. I wasn't looking through it, at it through the same lens. I didn't have that experience. And there's a huge value in watching something after a period of time. So I think that, I don't know if I've missed anything, Kathleen, as a matter of covering the class, or the course, I should say.
Yeah, I think it's all good. You've covered most of it, and I'm dropping the link, and I've pinned actually the message to the link to Mike's course page. So in case you're interested to learn more about that, that's on our website. So it's kind of like an art Netflix, but the free live demo is here, which is kind of like the teaser for all of those classes that Mike will be doing on our website. So I think that's pretty much it. So I think we can get started.
Okay, before we jump in, I just want to say I see all the highs. I see all of you. Hi, everyone. I want to mention something before I change my view here. And I mentioned the milkweed plant, and I want to show you that. You'll see it done probably later today. But I just want to talk about this. I'm going to hold it up beside me, but this is a milkweed plant I'm working on. It's not animals, but you can see a little bit, maybe if I pull it back like this, there we go. You can see that there's a texture to the pods. And that's what I mean about it being, what you learn here with regard to animals, you can apply even if you're a botanical artist. And so for me, this was a bit of an exercise, and you'll see it complete later today. But, even if you're not into animals, that's an opportunity for you to learn and apply it to what you're doing, even if it's an oil paint. I started my first oil paint. I'm doing another one tomorrow. And I really found the connection between pencil and oil in the sense of how I lay things out. Working with oil is much closer to graphite than working with acrylic or with watercolor. And I'm going to have to think about that a little bit, but I found pushing the paint around felt more like graphite to me. And anyways, that's that. So let's move to the overhead view here with the reference. Okay, so we're going to be doing this, and we're done. I'm just kidding. I did this for just as a matter of a reference, but that's what we're going to be working on. I am going to be using, because I know this will be the first question, mine. When I sketch in a various number of sketchbooks and mediums. This is the Bullfrog, if you've taken that class. This was in my Etchr sketchbook, but the nice thing about the hot press sketchbook is that you can do watercolor, you can do graphite, you can do all of it in the same book. And so the Etchr hot press sketchbook, I really love for that. It's the only book I found that kind of really manages all of the mediums in a way that allows me to kind of go into a coffee shop or sit in a car or whatever the case and just decide, I'm going to do pencil today, or I'm going to do watercolor, or I'm going to do ink. So, but today I'm going to be using a Bristol Smooth paper. I think this is Strathmore, but Fabriano, there's a bunch of companies that make it. The reason I like the Bristol Smooth is because there's very little tooth, there's very little texture. You look at something like a watercolor paper, you've really got a rough tooth, and that is challenging to work with when you're dealing with pencil because you're constantly filling in the holes. With something like this, you've got a bit more freedom. So we're going to be working with that. And my tools of choice, I am a Pentel ambassador for Canada. So, but I was using these.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Mike, can we remove the reference image just so we can just get the whole picture for the meantime? Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. So, so I just want to be, I am an ambassador for Pentel, but I was using this pencil long before they reached out to me, and they reached out to me because of the art I was doing. So, but this still is my favorite pencil, just because it is, I like mechanical pencils because the weight doesn't change. With a wooden pencil, as you are sharpening it down, it's getting lighter and lighter and shorter in the hand. I like mechanical pencils because they're consistent. And for something like a 0.5 millimeter, which is what this is, you can get leads from 2H all the way up to 4B. So this is loaded with 4B. And then for my smaller 0.3 millimeter, I have this loaded with 2B. It doesn't go 4B because the 4B would break at that small diameter. So these are my two pencils I use all the time. If I'm shading, I'm using this, and if I'm doing my typical fine work, I'm using the 0.3. The other thing I will do is I will use something like a clutch pencil, a drafting pencil. There's various companies that make this. I have this wrapped in some tape here because this is a 2H lead. And so I would treat, like, you don't have to get the whole pencil set, but the 2H lead I would call, when we talk about watercolors, we talk about convenience colors. Maybe you don't want a green because a green may be a convenience color when you can generate that with a yellow and a blue. I would consider 2H a convenience lead because there are times when I tell people you should try and get light with a 4B and a 2B because it will make you a better artist, I think. But I still use a 2H. When I'm doing the larger piece, the milkweed, I'm using a little bit of 2H here and there to blend and lay down the graphite. And so I do use that. The other thing we'll be doing today is a blender and a kneadable eraser. And so I like blue tack, but you can use the typical kneadable erasers that come in gray or white. But I rarely use an actual eraser. I never use one of those, one of these. I use this because there's a sharpener in the back, but I never use the eraser. You can see it's ripped. I think that was an accident maybe, but I've never used it. I remember being at a session and somebody's like, did anyone lose an eraser? And it's like, I don't use those. Don't use those. You'll ruin your paper. That's why I don't use them. So draw lightly, use this to pull up the graphite. You'll be much better off, and it gives yourself a sense of freedom because you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm going to put the graphite in the wrong spot. You can always lift it off. If you start using an eraser, you're going to beat up your paper. Okay, so I think that's, and the other thing that I may use today is an indenter. So this comes in 2 different sizes, and this is part of a set that you can get on Amazon. You can get them anywhere. And if you go to my site and look under gear, you can find a quick link to it. They're not expensive. And so what you do with this, and I'll show you it a bit later, if you indent the paper, it doesn't take in the graphite. And I did that on the milkweed. I'll do this on a couple of points here on the chickadee just to show how you use it. I go into this in more detail in the course. Okay, all right, let's get into drawing. Kathleen, how much time do we have?
At most 45 minutes, so that we can have time for Q&A. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
For the drawing, yes. Sorry.
All right, so I'm going to put on my glasses and get into this here. And I've got, sorry, I'll switch back to this. There we go. And I could throw me in here, but maybe what I'll do is I'll just leave it like this so we can focus just on this. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to think about, I'm going to be mindful of the screen that I'm dealing with here too. But when I work on a chickadee or any object, I'm not really strict necessarily about the outline, right? I'm going to start with something. If I'm just sketching for the sake of sketching, I'm not even thinking composition. I'm thinking, where do I start with the head and how do I fit that into the drawing I'm doing? So part of, I think, becoming a better artist is understanding how to look as a better artist, like look through those eyes. And so when I look at this chickadee, I'm looking at the length of the chickadee, and I'm looking at the tail, right from the tip of the tail on the far left to the front, its forehead on the far right. And what I'm looking for is a sense of where's the middle. And so for me, the middle is kind of where that tail goes under its wing. And so for me, that's a good kind of point of reference. If I consider that point being kind of the middle of the bird, I'm going to think about that when I'm drawing. If I start drawing the head, the head is fairly straightforward. I'm being really light here, and I'm using my wrong pencil. I'm going to use my 0.5 4B. So it's important to know as well that the disadvantage with using anything like an HB, a 2H, especially a 4H, is that you are scratching the paper as opposed to laying down the graphite. So when I sketch, I tend to use a 4B because it's much easier for me to go in and just dab with my kneadable eraser, and now the pencil's gone. So I always try and sketch with a 4B. Okay, so back to this, and we'll try and get as much as we can done. And I would encourage you to, if we don't get it done, to continue working on it. And you can post it in the Etchr Facebook page, which is Etchr Fam. It'd be great to see some of your work. If you don't want to post it there, you can always message me and send it to me that way as well. So I'm going to get, I've drawn a lot of chickadees, and so I like to get, this is a black cap chickadee. So I'm going to get its little cap sorted out here first. And I'm being really light with the pencil. And I want to get, because it's turned a little bit, and that's kind of the interesting challenge with this piece, is it's not a straight on profile shot. Okay. And then the beak is fairly short, so I'm just going to rough that in. It's kind of pointed down. And the forehead here, you can see I've kind of done this incorrectly. The forehead kind of goes out and then up, and that'll help us with the perspective as we get to that. And then the black feathers kind of go a little bit further. You can draw where there is white. It's fine to do that. I tend not to. And I don't know if I should. Do you think I should move in a bit, Kathleen, on that? Should I zoom in? Maybe a little bit. There. Maybe that's better. Okay. And the eye I'm not going to worry about right now. I kind of want to get a little bit more of this beak. So I'm going to do the bottom part of the beak like that, really lightly again. And I'm going to work on this black part underneath. And we're going to make sure that when we're looking at the feathers here, you can see that if I did a line down this way, if you could do the line right through the beak, it continues on. So make sure you do that. You don't want to have the bottom part of this black feather over here or too far in, because the human eye will see that and identify it as being odd. So I'm just doing a little bit darker here on the I like to go to the darks early. And once again, you don't have to draw it this way. And this recording will be available, so you can draw it as you would normally draw it now. And then if you want to go back and try it differently, you can do that. And the way I draw now is different than I drew 5 years ago versus 10 years ago. It changes, and it will change again. So I'm going to lift a little bit of the graphite off here. And we're going to think about this part here. And I'm just being really light because I just really need to know where I need to stop my shading. So I'm being really light along that part of the chickadee. And I'm just trying to look at these big segments here. You notice I'm not down here doing the tail or anything. It doesn't matter. I got lots of room on my paper for that. So I'm not going to worry too much about it. Okay, let's get the eye sorted out. So you can see the beak. I'm going to do the beak a little bit darker here so you can see it and it stands out. So the chickadee has kind of a beak that kind of curves down and curves up. So what you'll notice is if we look at the top of the beak, and we look over here where the eye is going to be, we've got a little bit of a ramp up, but the bottom part of the eye is if you looked at drew a line from the bottom of the eye to the right, it kind of hits about here. So that's what I'm going to use as a reference. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go big with the eye, because I can always go smaller. When you're doing highlights, and I'm actually going to go over a little bit, I think. Because if I'm looking at the head here, so we've got a height about this, and we've got the head this way, the curve and flattens out. If I drop a line down, we're looking at the edge of the eye is more like this. So let's try that again. Once again, because I'm using a 4B, I'm going to go a little bit bigger. Yeah, and so my point about this is, you know, if you're drawing something that has white spots on it, we tend to draw out the white spots. We always draw them too small. So always, if you're doing an animal that has white spots on it, always make those white spots a little bit bigger, because you can always fill them in. It's much harder to remove the material if you end up pushing too hard. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do the eye right now. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to start with, this is my 4B, so it's my darkest that I have available. I have a 6B that I carry with me, and I'll show you that in a bit, because I do talk about that in the course about 6B and the shininess of graphite and ways to get around it. So there, we have an eye that's shiny. And I like to do the eyes in animals because they tell me what to do next. And so I tend to focus on getting the eyes done. Now this eye, for it to stand out, you can see it has a little bit of a white edge around it. So I'm going to define that right now so I don't forget when I'm coming in with the black here that we do have, so I'm building a little bit of a guardrail for myself around that. And let's go ahead and let's finish this head. Okay. And the feathers on this, they grow upwards. So that is how I'm going to bring them in here. And so I'm not going to be focused too much on drawing feathers. I'm drawing, and I'm using the reference that in the video software here. So I'm not even seeing the detail that you can probably see. And that's fine. You know what I've noticed lately is I have not needed glasses until recent years. And I tend to wear glasses when I draw. But sometimes, like when I was working on the milkweed, I was intentionally not using my glasses because the devil is in the details. And sometimes when you're trying to abstract that piece away, having access to details may cause you to get sidetracked. And so if you use glasses, but you can still see a little bit, so try considering at least your initial bits, drawing those without glasses and see if that works for you. I do that sometimes. Sometimes it happens because they're upstairs and I'm too lazy. But other times I do it intentionally. Okay, so the thing that I want to note here too is, I'm going to try and be a little bit faster here. Once again, I'm just trying to get is what I was going to say is that it's really dark on the front here, right? So in this piece, and I should have talked about this a bit earlier, we're thinking about where the light's coming from, right? So the light is coming down this way. So we're seeing a shadow under the wing, and we're seeing a little bit lighter graphite on the top, or a little bit lighter highlight here, but I'm still going to go in. I can always lift this off a bit, but where I'm drawing right now, it is lighter. So we need to make sure that it's still, we still see reflected, no reflected light, which is how black is produced. But we do see a little bit of reflected light because the light's hitting it and the angle is producing that kind of lighter gray for us. So yeah, I can zoom in more or less if people, I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat, but I want to make sure.
I think this is, yeah, I already asked, and I think this is okay for now.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So I'm being really not very careful here. And I'm not pushing too hard because there are parts I'm confident with, like when I was doing the eye, I was pretty confident with where the eye was. But, and this part here, I'm going to be a bit darker. Now, so you can see we've got a little bit, I'm going to go a little bit lighter here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use my blender and just blend a little bit into this lighter. And then what I'm going to do is lift off a little bit of the graphite just by, I've got a little piece like that, and I'm just dragging it across the top here just to make it a little bit lighter. The other trick you can do with this is if you are doing a sketch and you're going to do it in ink or whatever the case, if you roll this into like a hot dog and then roll it on your paper, it's a really nice way to lift off graphite consistently. So keep that in mind if you're using graphite to sketch and you want to remove it, this is a really great way to do that. Okay. So, oh, and the other thing I was going to show you is in my toolkit, and I'm going to be posting a YouTube video about this in the next couple of days, but I carry this around with me, which is, or how I can, there we go. So it's a Faber-Castell Pit Graphite Matte. This is a 6B pencil. And the reason I like this one, and I talk about this in the course, is that it's 6B, so it's really dark, but it has no shine to it. And so you've seen those kind of teaser videos from Etchr. This is one of those pencils. So Staedtler makes one as well. You don't have to use like the really, I don't know if I can show this. Is this going to work? No. Anyways, it doesn't have the same kind of sheen as if you were to use a normal 6-8B pencil. And so I do carry one of those around with me if I really want a dark that I know I don't want to reflect light. Okay. I'm just going to have a sip of water here. Okay. Now, I usually mark my pencils with tape, and I keep having to look at and see which one I have. Okay, so I'm going to show you an indenter tool here in action. So you can see below here, there's some white in this area right here. So what I want to do is I don't want to get graphite on it, right? And you can see some white down in here as well. So I can take my graphite tool, or my indenter tool, and I can use a really small tip, and I can just go in and press the paper. I'm just indenting the paper. And if you do it in a way that where you go slowly in and lift slowly up, you're going to get a really nice line. Keep in mind that if you make a mistake here, it's really hard to fix because now you have to fill in that little line. Now what I will do is I won't carry these indenters with me when I'm out drawing coffee shops and stuff. What I will do is I will retract the lead fully here, like you can see in my mechanical pencil, and I will use the edge of this, which does the same thing. And just make sure you're not pushing too hard. It's just enough to make a difference. So now if I come in, oh wait, I'm going to add a little bit more here. You can do this with little bits like that. So now this is my 4B, 0.5 millimeter. I'm going to go in and you can see, and now we have these lines appearing. It's kind of hard to see in that. There we go. So if you want a way to preserve the whites instead of fighting around them, that's a really good way to do it. Okay, so I'm going to go down here. And you know, the line that goes up here, I'm going to bring it up a little bit more. And there we go. And you can fill these in a little bit. I'm going to bring this one down. And this is great for white hairs on top of, and I'll show you in the course how you can add shadows on top of this, which is great. Now I've got this white part here, and I'm just going to do it in like this now. I'm not going to do anything with it. Let's focus on the back. So one thing I'm noticing about the back here is it starts going almost horizontal here, and then it kind of fades away. So I'm just going to do a little, this is where I'm going to kind of go with, okay, how big is this bird going to be? I'm going to come down here with this, and I'm trying to think about, you know, if I just do a little bit down here, I feel that needs to be a little fatter, maybe down into here. Maybe not that far, actually. So you can lift with this kneaded eraser, or you can rub with it. If I happen to end up off screen, please tell me. When I was working on the videos for the course, there was a few times when I was like,
I think you're good, yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't think we're going to get this whole thing done, but I'm going to show you some tips as we get along the way here. So let's go a little bit quicker. And
Just to confirm, sorry,
yeah.
just to quickly confirm, this is 4B in 0.3 or 0.5?
0.5. So you can't buy 4B in 0.3 because the lead's really soft, and I think because it would break easily at a 0.3 size. So that's why I used to use the 0.3 forever, and then I found out you can get 4B in 0.5, and it's like, well, that's what I'll use then. So yeah, I use a mix of the two. And I'm just trying to get a sense of, okay, we're going to go down here. And I'm trying to think about things, techniques I can show you here instead of trying to finish the bird. And the other thing I'm thinking about too is that we've got a center in the back here. You can see where the feathers meet. So I'm mindful about kind of that bit. And when I'm drawing these lines here, I'm drawing the line below the highlight. So there's that white line, right? So I'm not drawing the white line. You either draw the line above the white line or below the white line. So that can kind of mess with your mind a little bit. But in this case, I can do it above, and this one I can do it below, but you're trying to preserve that white line that's there. In this case, there is no white line at the top here because that's the kind of greenish. And for something like this, this is a different texture. So I'm going in with, I would even consider using the 0.3 here because it would make a finer feather. And as we reach up into this, I think I'm going to take my highlighter, my indenter, and just kind of do a line that way. That'll help preserve kind of that feathered look. And I'm going to show you something here. In a second. And these are little tiny feathers. Some are long, some are a little bit short. So that's the stroke I'm doing here. And I'm seeing that there's a little bit of white. So I could go in with a blender and just a little light blend. And I'm doing this right now for another reason. I'll show you that. So now I'm blending that in, right? Now I've got this loaded. This is my other drawing tool. This is not just for blending. This is for, you can do things like, for example, I'll do that in a sec, but I can draw, if I've got enough graphite on here, I can draw the rest of the bird. And I will do this often because this is even easier to lift. So I can do that, go down, and like I said before, if we do half to here and half to here, this is about where the tail is. Put this back, right? So that's about where the tail is. So I can then just quickly bring this in. And then we got the bottom part of the wing here, which will be quite dark. And then we can, if we can follow this line down a bit, we can bring it up. And the nice thing about this is you don't have to draw the feet because they're hidden behind the bird. Okay. Now the one thing I wanted to show you as well is I'm going to bring, actually before we do that, I'm going to bring this up a little bit more. Because it's not that much white. When you're dealing with these edges here where you've got white meeting feathers, we can bring a little bit of that up. Okay, but what I wanted to show you here is you can see that the lower part below the eye, it's not really white, right? It's a little bit of a gray. So what I can do is I can come in here and start adding The really bright white part is kind of strip here from the beak all the way up under the eye. So I want to make sure I avoid that, but in here I can for sure add a little bit. And when you smudge, when you blend, you may get these little much darker blend bits. I can just lift those up with my kneadable eraser. But now we can suggest that this, because this is brighter, we're thinking, oh, that cheek is closer to me, and this is falling into the bird a little bit. And so that's what you're always thinking about. Same as down here. This is white, but I'm going to use the blender to make it the shadowed white that I need. And I'm going to use this kneadable eraser to pull off that graphite I had before. I'm just going to do this with a really light touch. And then I'm going to rely on this slightly beige, say beige, light ochre part of the bird to help define where it goes out to, and leave this a bit lighter. And if I need that lighter again, no problem. I'm going to go in and pull off some more graphite there. Okay. And I use different size blenders. So I have this one, I have this size, and then I have a little tiny one. And people always think I'm kind of weird when I pull this out because it looks like something in a coffee shop, but I use these and they're kind of hollow inside. And these I use a lot because they're really tiny. You can see this one's loaded up nicely with graphite. And I will, if you find that that's too loaded with graphite, then just take a little bit of sandpaper. You can buy these. You can use it at Home Depot. It's fine. Something like a 220 grit, but you can buy these at art supply stores. I've done this because I wanted the graphite powder, but you can go in with this and just wipe your blender and remove some of the graphite if you find it's too strong. But for me, I know this one's really dark, so I'm not going to use it in this case. But it doesn't matter which blender you use. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to continue seeing what I can use here on my graphite brush. I do talk about brushes. I went to my local pharmacy into the makeup section, and I found some fantastic brushes that I've only used for drawing. But you don't have to go necessarily and spend your money in an art store to get supplies to make it work for you. Okay. All right. Now, the thing I'm going to do back here is I want to make sure that I remember there's a shadow here. This helps me to kind of overall, when I'm drawing, I'm always looking at the image to think about, like, as I'm drawing here, I'm looking at the top here. I'm not necessarily always focused on this bit, and I tend to make mistakes because of that. But I find that as long as you keep moving your eye and shifting around, you're going to be looking at a different perspective. You're going to be focusing on something else. It's always helpful to, when you're focused, let's say where I am now, trying to get this this part with the feathers right, is if I'm looking up at the eye, something may stand out at me that I haven't seen before, and then I just go and fix that. So that critic that's inside your head right now, that is looking at your piece and telling you nonsense, direct it away. Have it focus on something else, and you can address it a bit later. So I'm going to start working on this. I want to make sure that I leave enough white on the top. There is a nice advantage with this, is that you have a bit of a line that's there, so we can preserve that white. Sometimes I have, and I'm going to make this a little bit darker here. It's one of those times where it's like, oh, that's a bit of a shadow from the tree. I would draw the tree in because something like this too, I think it's important when you're drawing animals that sometimes you need the branch, you need the ground to explain the bird's or the animal's position. You need to explain why it is standing or sitting the way it is. And it helps to provide perspective to the viewer, to be able to understand, oh, I thought the bird was looking kind of weird, but I didn't realize it was hanging off the side of a tree. If I just drew this like this, it may look a little bit odd, like chickadees don't stand like that. If I just add the front edge of the tree just enough like I did in the test image I was doing. That's just enough to say, okay, now I get it. Okay, so this part of the wing, I'm not worried at all. I know there are feathers. I know they have a certain texture here, but I do not care because all I'm trying to do is get the dark. I'm not focused on that level of detail in this one. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to preserve that white edge, right? So I'm going to come down below it. This edge here is really dark. So I can come in with, and I'm rotating. I can't show you this easily, but you know, as long as I want you to think about when I'm resting the pencil, I've got that kind of bit sitting there. I know that as I'm drawing, that there's a chisel shape that's happening. And I know that if I keep doing it this direction, the part I'm using is getting flatter and flatter, which means the top part of the pencil is getting sharper and sharper. And I'm always thinking about that because there are times like this where I need the sharp bit. So I rotate the pencil 180 degrees, and now I can take that nice sharp line that I've created and do that. I'm not going to go too hard because we'll see that in the final image, but I can now use that line and come in really nice and detailed. And oh, I've lost the edge. I rotated 180 degrees. Now I can go back to developing my edge again. And I will do that intentionally sometimes. I will want the edge, live for the edge, and I will go somewhere else and create that edge and then come back when I feel it's ready. Okay. So for this bit here, this is a nice opportunity to maybe try for this white bit, which is a transition to a gray, right? Is to come in here with the blender and try and do it that way, as opposed to drawing it. Okay. How are we doing for time? Time check.
I think we're good. People are engaged and either watching or following. So, yeah.
So I didn't expect we would get this done, but I wanted to be able to kind of give you a teaser of some of the stuff that was in the course as well. And so all I'm doing here is, once again, mindful of the little feathers here in the direction. So I'm going to drag those down. I'm using the 0.5 here. I should be using my 0.3. So the tools you've seen me using today, you can do almost all of what is in the course with those tools.
Yeah, and I think Mike talks about all of these, his tools rather, that he's going to be using throughout the course extensively in session 1. So you're up for a treat.
Yeah, I do spend a lot of time. That's really what session 1 is about, is the tools. Because I know it's so funny, right? You get together as artists. I've been in a few recent artists kind of gatherings where I live. And the first thing people do is start talking about the tools. Where'd you get that? What is that for? What paper do you use? What's your favorite whatever? And so let's just own it. So that's what the first part is about.
I think that's what, getting into art is also all about, just talking about art tools and where to get them.
Yes. And there's stuff, like I do talk about, for example, using graphite powder. And I know some artist friends of mine who spend a lot of time with graphite powder and do amazing stuff. I don't use it a lot, but I do talk about it. I do show it. And I may have a need for it at some point. So I do have it available, but I don't use it a whole lot. I haven't used it a whole lot. Okay. And I'm just trying to think about some of these, there's a bit of a line here, and I want to make sure that we carry this line around. And I'm being really kind of open with this, because his back, or his or her back, is the center of it's about here. So it's kind of looking at us at a bit of an angle. So I want to make sure I get this kind of roll where we're seeing a bit more back on this side. Yeah, if you're watching, don't leave because you'll have a chance to win some cool stuff later. And so all the reference images that are in this course are freely available. I had this happen before where someone did the bullfrog, and they asked me politely, which I think you should always do when people are producing photos, is can I put this into an art show? And no problem. So if you're doing the course and you like the reference image and you want to produce something and put it in an art show, you can go right ahead. Now, one of the images I actually generated with AI, and I did that for a reason, and I'll talk about that in the course. I tend to frown away from AI. I work in it all day in health research. But I have kind of a different opinion with regard to art, but I did use it for a reason, and I'm going to save that for the course.
Mike, speaking of graphite powder, someone's asking, do you buy them or do you make them?
So I've done both. I don't have the graphite powder handy, but I bought graphite powder, and what I realized after I bought the graphite powder is I wasn't really. It's good. It's good if you want to play with it, but I started making my own, just a little batch of it with the 8B or 6B. No, 8B. I used 8B. Faber-Castell, the matte, and I started using that. Once again, I haven't used it a lot, but yes, you can buy it. I forget there's like 2 brands. And you can buy them at like Michael's and stuff like that. But yes. So the answer is yes, I've done both.
And somebody's also curious, have you tried graphite with colored pencil, like together?
I haven't done it with colored pencil. If I do colored pencil, I will tend to draw my image in graphite as a sketch, and then just enough to get the basic shapes, and then I will remove the graphite. I have used water-soluble graphite. I didn't like that experience as much because I found it's dull when it's done, when it dries. But I haven't mixed graphite and because if I do colored pencil now, I will use something called Zest-It, which is like a blending medium. And so if you want to work with colored pencils and you want to blend them, you can use this kind of medium, which is a liquid, to blend them together. And graphite wouldn't blend well with that. So I tend to, when I'm doing colored pencil, it's 100% colored pencil. Hope that helps. And so in here, it's a bit darker, so I'm going to come in with the blender and just, if I need a bit more darkness. Okay, let's go up in here. Now, I want to manage the highlights here, so I'm going to take my kneaded eraser. I'm going to just pull up a little bit here. And I'm trying to now, and I'll show you, make a little really thin line. So I'm going to use this line that I've made in the with the kneaded eraser, so that I'm not pulling up sheets, but I'm pulling up a pattern that's similar to the pattern that's there. And we're going to go really light up here, because that's where the sun is topping it. So when you're working with this material as it is and you're drawing lightly, you can really, that's why I say, like, I feel like oil is more like graphite, because you can shape this right till the end. If you're using dark leads and you're not pushing too hard, except for obviously the areas where you dent, but you can massage and you can work this all the way through. now I'm thinking, well, I need to go a little bit darker down here, so I can do that. And for these lines here, which are the wings, I'm going to turn my image slightly just so I can come in here. They kind of do that. And then what I would do, because we really don't have any white in here, is I would kill the white back with that. And I'm going to do a little light one there, but this is much darker. And so we can get our wings kind of sorted out. We have a little bit of a, this is a little bit of a, I don't know if that's a shadow or not. But I need this to be darker here, so I'm actually going really lightly with my, I was going to say my 4B, but I would be lying. Now I'm not. With my 4B 0.5 millimeter. And my intent with that, and you can do, this is really white, but I can go in here and I just want to suggest the feather direction. And I can leave that edge here unfinished because now I've suggested that the feathers are kind of going down this way. That's too much graphite on that. I will use this one instead. And don't go in immediately with your blender. Rotate it around and think, oh, that's, I don't want to use that edge. So make sure that's faced up. And then you can go in and just blend these a little bit. And this is a bit of a shadow here. So we can pull this up a little bit once again with my knife edge kneadable eraser. I'm just going to pull that up a little bit, right? And now we're getting a little bit of suggestion of a shadow there. I'm going to go back to the 0.5 and I highly recommend that when you're drawing around the whites that you draw the whites. It'll save you from killing them with the graphite. I mean, you do this in a lot of mediums, right? Where you want to knock back the white. Same thing, when you're working in acrylics or oils, you don't want to necessarily work with a white canvas. You want to knock it back. But with those, you can always pull back the white. It's much harder with graphite, so you want to be careful about that. Okay. I'm not, this isn't perfect here, but that's not the intent, right? I'm just trying to get this about right. I do want to make sure that I get and I've said this so many times, when you're working on an image, don't try to own the whole thing as being perfect. But there are parts of an image that you may work on where you think, I really am proud of myself for the section I did. And that's what you've got to work from, is that doing art is about practice and about doing it regularly. And there may be times when I don't draw for a day or two and I get back to it. And that's okay as well. I don't draw every day. But there are things today that you may have learned that you didn't learn before. Maybe not about what I said, but what about you, stuff that you've done and drawing along with me if you're doing that. And you can turn around and apply that to the next one. And you're just building yourself a foundation. So be kind to yourself and realize that when somebody looks at your finished bit that you've done, they don't see all of this, right? So they don't see the value that you've created as an artist for yourself. And that is fine. And that's something we can keep secret. We all know it's there, but they don't. And it's okay. And I just say that because I think people can be a little bit cruel about on their work. And there are times when I've done stuff and it's like, you know what, that part isn't right. But if we have conversations about our art with people that want to hear it, and I think the Etchr Facebook page is a great place for that. And if you want to message me, absolutely. But just talking through, and you'll appreciate that maybe you were focused really just on that specific part that you messed up on, but you didn't see the beauty in the other bits that you've done. And I think we can be a little bit hard on ourselves. We all know this, right? We all know we can be. So how do we change that? And that's why I say focus on it and think, oh, wow, I really got that eye right. Or I nailed the feet. Or I got the shine just right on the feathers, or whatever the case. You start to build on that, and you realize, oh, I can do eyes now, or I can do feathers, or I can do reflections, and you just add that to your quiver, and you start to build up, and that's how you become a better artist. That's how, and I shouldn't say that, from somebody who has a degree in art, but that's how I did it coming to it late in life. Is I drew and realized, and I took a very critical look at my initial work, but I didn't let it stop me. I encouraged it to move me forward. Like my first chickadee, I look at it and I think, oh, there were so many things I could have done better there. But it was a start. And what's great is because I produced that when I went back to it, I think 10 years later or whatever, and I did a similar one and posted beside each other, I give myself enough contrast through what I would say was a challenging bit of graphite work to the better graphite work. I now give myself this wide range of improvement. So encourage yourself to make the mistakes, because when you don't make the mistakes, you give yourself an opportunity, you give yourself that contrast, right? You can look back and say, wow, I've really improved because I didn't tear up that piece and throw it away. Yeah. It's so funny. I see so many professional artists talk about imposter syndrome all the time, right? I think if you're hitting imposter syndrome, it means you're looking at your art the right way. I think that you're looking at your art, you're trying to prove it. So embrace it as being that, and not that you're not good. You are good, and you want to be better, and that's how you do it. Is you look at your work and think, how do I improve it? How do I change it? We're getting fairly far along with this. I don't know if there's any questions.
There are. I have reserved a couple for the Q&A at the end, so
Okay.
feel free to let us know if you still have more questions you wanted to reserve in the end. If you want to ask questions about the course, about Mike, there are questions about oops, Mike, I think we can't see the details. There we go. Thank you. There we go.
I knew it would happen.
Yeah. Not a problem. Yeah, so any questions? If you're interested to learn more about Mike's art journey, so someone's curious about your art medium, so we can definitely entertain that as well. So yeah, let us know. And of course, for those who are active here in the chat, you get a chance to win our giveaway. So I'll explain the mechanics later on. But this is really exciting since we're talking about art materials and how everyone is getting into the rabbit hole of, getting more and more art materials. So, there's this trend that I posted on Etchr Studio Fam where I asked people to complete I am an artist, of course. So, and it's funny to see your comments. I'm an artist, of course. I have a lot of art supplies, but I still get more. This kind of stuff. So maybe if you join our group, maybe you can add your thoughts in there too. So.
I think in order to be a good artist, you have to be a good art tool collector. I think it's unfortunate, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like tied together, unfortunately, but also in a good way.
Yeah. Like we're all on our own. We want to travel together, right? But we have to understand that we are different, and what I think is a great pencil or a great sketchbook may be different to you. But there's so many options out there. It's like walking into an old Blockbuster or something, right? What movie should we get? And that's what it feels like sometimes. But eventually, you will whittle away at it. I have so many supplies here I never used that I may come back to. But you will find your way. And you, like I said this in the interview with Etchr. I don't remember the podcast episode number, but it's in the Etchr YouTube channel below. But you have to be curious. curious about the mediums that you're using, curious about the mediums that you want to explore. I've been curious about oil forever, and I finally tried it like last week, week before, and I just really think I've loved it. I'm loving it, but I'm not giving up graphite. Like, that's why I went right to doing this milkweed, is I missed it immediately. Tish is asking for art supplies Mike is using. So the pencil I'm using right now, when I'm doing my larger work, is the 0.5 millimeter with 4B loaded in it. And then the other pencil I use is a 0.3 with 2B. And so those are the two leads I use. I do at times, is it going to affect things? Okay. So I also use this pencil, which is a Pentel as well. It's an Orange Nero. Same leads. The only thing about this is it's a little bit lighter, and it's a matte finish. It feels expensive. It's a little bit more than these, but I do use this as well. But I also carry it as a backup. I have lots of backups on my little kit. So I will be. I think tomorrow I'm going to record that video finally of showing you what's in my travel kit, which includes all my drawing, painting. I've got my Etchr. One of the books I carry is my Etchr A6, and so I'll encourage you to watch that video because I kind of go through what I'm using now. But yes, right now I'm using for a lot of the larger work, I'm using this 0.5. Okay. And where I don't want really thin lines, that's what I'm using the 0.5 for. And if we consider, adding the tree in here, we could just drop that in. And what paper am I using? I'm using a Bristol Smooth. So various companies make this, but this is a Strathmore Bristol Smooth, and Fabriano make one as well. I'm just looking, left my drawing here. It is 100 pound, so 270 GSM. But you can use, if you've got hot press paper, you can use that. If you've got the hot press sketchbook, that's a great tool to draw in. But for this case, I wanted kind of no tooth on the paper. So if you go into any art store and look for something around 300 GSM, so 250 to 350, and smooth Bristol is what you're looking for. That'll give you the lack of holes in the paper that you have to fill with graphite. So I've just thrown down some squiggly lines here just to start bringing in the graphite a little bit, or the bark. I just wanted to load up my blender again. And what you're going to want to be mindful of here is that we can use yes, 0.5 with 4B and 0.3 with 2B. I wish I could get darker, but you just don't make them. Okay, so what I was saying is that I'm going to focus just on this area here, is that to encourage or to emphasize the fact, I'm just going to pull up a bit of graphite there, to emphasize the fact that the light's coming down from the top down this way. When you are doing this part of the bird, make sure that you are, even though the texture of the bark will be the same, that you are going a little bit darker underneath here, and that'll help to pull out the bird from the bark. Because if you have this gray here, the same as the gray beneath, it's not going to look like the bird is coming out, and we're going to get confused about where the light's coming from. And I think I see that so many times in people's work, and it's not just pencil, it's other work as well, where if you lose that depth because you're not pushing the darks dark enough, I'm confused about where the light's coming from. And I do it all the time. I combine reference images. I may have an image from, like, the milkweed I'm doing is combined from 3 images. But what I have to do is I can't draw what I combined. I have to change where the light source is, and then I have to manage the shadows differently. So be mindful of that. And really push those darks. That was, I've taken one drawing course. It was a workshop kind of 3-day thing, and the big takeaway from that was pushing the darks. So if I'm not even really looking at the bark, like, once you draw a certain kind of tree, you know what the bark's going to look like. If you're drawing a birch, for example, which is a very striking texture. If I'm drawing this, I think this is ash. I'm just kind of willy-nilly all over the place here. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to come in darker later. And then what we can do is we can add some interesting bits along the side here. For example, we don't want to go really dark down here. Oh, good question. Sorry, I just catching that in the chat, Kathleen. So, good question about drawing and without smudging. So, because I'm right-handed, I tend to start from the top right down, unless I'm doing something like this, where I can move from the head. I usually try and draw the eye first down, so I'm not going over anything. Because I've done the bottom part here, if I go back up here, I'm going to either reach with my pencil like this, or I just lay a piece of paper on top. And that's it. That's what I do. Don't shuffle the paper around, but just lay it on top, and then off you go, and you're good. The other advantage with this sometimes is it hides the rest of the image and allows you to focus just on the texture. So that's all I do.
Awesome. And even the bark, you can already see like the texture coming through. It's really amazing.
Yeah, when I'm drawing bark, I'm looking at where are the dark bits, because I'm trying to pull out the white. So I'm just drawing the darks, and yeah, and then I can come in. Sorry, Kathleen, you're going to say something else.
Oh, nothing. I was just gonna remind everyone that I have dropped the feedback survey. What we really appreciated if you guys would save that link and let us know how we did today for this demo. And it's gonna take just 2 minutes of your time, and would really, really appreciate it. So, and again, just a quick reminder for those who are here, we will be having a quick giveaway later on. So, really exciting.
Yeah, I would really like if everyone filled out the feedback, because I strive to be a better artist, but I also strive to be a better educator. So any feedback that you can provide me, I would, and Etchr and Kathleen would be greatly appreciated. So I think even with stuff like this, adding a little bit more texture, like a little, adding some interesting things here, makes it, and you have to be careful about not making it look too odd, but it, up here we could go a little bit crazier if we wanted. And you'll find through these reference images and just looking at nature generally that you will see, as I mentioned, seeing animals in the clouds, you will see textures that look like something you know, and you'll realize, wow, I am seeing patterns where there are no patterns. I am seeing the head of a horse in the bark. And so that's where we can leverage that to suggest things. And we can also be aware that if we draw too much like this, it will suggest something that isn't there. But just being aware that your mind's always trying to find these patterns, right? So once again, just being really quick here. I'm not looking at the reference at all. I will look up every, 30 seconds or so and think about, should I loop in something interesting?
Nice.
And the other thing I will suggest too is if you wanted to, you can also do something like blurring the edge of the tree, which is another technique to imply depth, right? So if we blur
Mhm.
this leading edge, we can have the details sitting at the eye level, which would be this part of the bark right here.
And is it that intentional, like you leaving the top part of the branch or the tree rather lighter than the one below to emphasize
Um,
the shadow? Okay.
so in this case, it depends what I want to do. Like if I would go darker here because the highlight's coming this way, so it's not. If I leave it too light here, it's like the chickadee is falling off the tree.
Right.
The shadow on this edge of the tree is consistent all the way down. The reason that you see a bit more here is because just the angle of the sun, right? So it's a bit lighter here. The important thing between the top and the bottom here is that you're going to have more shadow right here.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And so
Okay.
that's the part that you need to distinguish from the top and the bottom. I just haven't finished the top.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I thought it was. All right. So while Mike is almost towards the end, I think we can talk about sealing your work. So do you use? Someone's asking, do you use fixative for your pencil works?
So that's a really good question because I tried a new. Can I just switch for a sec to me?
Yes.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to grab it. I'm going to show you what I've used. I can't show you the other. You can buy spray fixative. So can I just switch to me like this? There we go. So I bought this stuff, Spectra Fix. And I tried it. It is water-based. It's made with milk. I think that's why there's cows. I think. Anyways, it does an okay, and you have to get it with the sprayer. I mean, if you have like a hair sprayer, a mister, you can use the same thing. But I didn't like it. It's I want to like it. I'm going to try it again. It gets the paper too wet. So normally in the past when I've done spray fixative, I've used like you can go into any art store and ask for workable fixative. So Krylon is the one I used, and it is workable fixative. And the advantage with workable fixative is that you can spray the chickadee that I'm drawing right now. You could spray it, and you can then draw on top of it, and you can do another layer on top of it. And so I always use workable fixative. I try and remember to spray in my sketchbook because it will smudge, but I don't always remember. So that is what I use. And I noticed here, I don't know if we can see it again. Yeah.
Oh, there.
Yeah, you can see the sheen, but you can see
Yeah.
there's a little bit less right on the front of the forehead. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, that's the 6B, the nice matte 6B.
Right. I'm glad you showed that to us, like in the light, because someone was asking earlier how to take photographs, because it's sometimes hard to take photographs with like that shine or sheen.
Right.
Any tips with that? Yeah.
Yeah, so what I recommend doing is that when you're doing a photo is making sure that, especially with graphite, natural light's always better, always better. But if you're photographing, and this would apply to watercolor, but especially with graphite because you get that sheen, is making sure that you have two light sources coming in at 45 degrees. Because all you're thinking about with, the way an image captured is through reflection, right? And so if the light is reflecting off the graphite, it's going to come straight up. So if you have your light source, if you have a ring light, you point it down, that's not going to work. All you're going to see is reflection. If you get the light coming in at 45, it works out much better. So if you can place yourself near a window, a light source, and just simply rotate the image around with your camera, looking through the camera, looking through your phone. I use a phone most of the time. You'll start to see that reflection of the graphite go away. Now, if you're using a workable fixative, it will dull it down, and it does a good job in kind of killing off. I say killing, removing a lot of that sheen and producing kind of a matte finish. And so that's helpful. But if you are photographing, it's just making sure that you get the light coming in at 45 degrees, because then it's hitting the paper like this and then bouncing off that way and not bouncing up this way. And so just making sure you get the light sources coming in at 45.
Gotcha. That's really helpful. Thank you so much. All right. Are we almost finished, or are we done? Do we consider it done?
I think we can consider it complete.
Yeah.
I can answer any questions, or if
Yes. All right. So I think we can now open the floor for Q&A while Mike is flashing this pretty chickadee on the screen. Let me just backtrack through some questions that I've saved. Catherine is asking, do you ever use or sketch on colored paper? Does it give off the same kind of vibe? Yeah.
So I use a moleskin, which has a kind of a cream texture to it. So I've done that. I've done colored pencil, but I've done colored pencil on black paper. That's been good. And I've done colored pencil in the Etchr hot press, which is fantastic for that. I don't know if that answers your question, but I have drawn a fair bit of colored pencil, and I don't know if I can show you that easily. Should I do that?
Yeah. I think some of the people in the chat are also curious about what other mediums you are using apart from.
Sure. Yeah. So let me just.
Oh, maybe we can remove the. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that. Oh, and then I have to. I don't know why. Sorry, I'm just thinking that my zoom level is wrong here. There we go. Okay, so this is all colored pencil. And so, as I say, once you get into drawing, you can draw with colored pencil just as well as you can graphite. So that's colored pencil on white.
Awesome. Beautiful.
And then one thing we talk about in the course as well is using things like backgrounds in the environment to, do I have it in here? Yeah, just using the environment to help establish an animal's presence. And so I thought I had one with horses, but I don't think that's in this sketchbook. And the reason I did the background here, for example, was because I wanted the white hair to stand out. This was a quick sketch, but you can do that often. Just add in a bit of graphite in the background. It helps to push out the subject that you're working on. So
those are really pretty, and I think everyone in the chat is saying they're beautiful. Okay. Well, that's obviously one thing we can agree. All right. I think that's some of the questions there. Is there a way to? Yep, you've answered already the first question.
Oh, the other one I'll show you is. Where is that? Is working with markers as well. I did this one a little while ago. I don't know if I posted it to the Etchr group, but these are all drawn with water-based markers. So there's a lot of different brands out there. I used obviously the Pentel ones, but Tombow make them. I think Etchr has some as well. But water-based markers are nice because you can lay them down as long as you protect the whites. So similar to, once again, once you learn how to draw pencil, you can take on this and about preserving the whites. Although the shiny bits, that's just white I haven't painted. But the nice thing about watercolor-based markers is that you can bring in with a water brush, which looks like, sorry, this isn't graphite, but if you use a water brush like this, you can go in and then just simply apply a bit of water and blend like I've done here. But having a core in drawing really gives you the ability, I think, to do this a bit better.
Exactly. I was just about to say that, like, um, getting all of these foundational skills and that Mike will be teaching in this course will certainly help you move from just drawing with graphite to transitioning to other mediums, and also not only drawing animals, but like Mike mentioned, also drawing other subjects too. So yeah,
Exactly.
I love the frogs.
And I
Sorry,
see the
go ahead.
question about, did I draw with pencil before using the markers? No. In that one, I went straight to markers. Um,
Very brave.
I think except one. One I did, I think I love loose sketch with pencil. So I think once you get a handle on using graphite, then you can take on things like drawing with ink. And so what you could do is you could draw a sketch with pencil, and then you can come in and use ink on top of it, which is a good way to kind of get to it, to the idea of painting with just ink. And that's an exhilarating experience to be able to draw with ink, because you're going to mess up and you cannot fix it. But drawing with ink using a fountain pen or using a different type of permanent ink pen is an exhilarating experience, because you're putting it all out there. And then you can come in with watercolor if you wanted, but having that foundation of drawing will allow you to get to that point. And you have to try it at some point. It's so much fun.
Gotcha. That is beautiful. We also have one more question here in the chat. Doesn't seem that the graphite smudges onto the opposite paper even without a fixative when you're using a sketchbook. Is that right?
Yeah, so it doesn't smudge a lot, but you can, I'll switch back to the overhead here. You can see that there's a bit of smudge here. This one is actually, I did spray this. This was my test. So this was that fixative I was talking about. It works, but the page gets all warpy. It has so much water in it, right? So I do get some push through, but what I tend to do is I cut a piece that's the size of the piece I'm working on. And when I'm done drawing, you can see this one has a bunch of graphite smudging. What I do is, this is what I put in between the pages, whether it's my Etchr sketchbook. I've got one in here as well. And this one has paint all over it, because these are mostly paintings. Is I cut this piece and I put it in there. So if I'm in a coffee shop and I want to stop, I just slide this in, even if the watercolor is wet, and I close it up. When I do that with graphite, what I think it does is I think it lifts off that initial layer. And I think until I get to the next piece, this piece of paper serves as a bit of an absorbent layer and pulls off the loose graphite before I have to move to kind of the next drawing that I'm working on. So I would recommend for a sketchbook, always have, it doesn't matter what the paper is. I think this is Bristol vellum. It doesn't matter. Just put it in between, and that serves to protect your piece until you get to the next one.
Okay. Awesome. All right. I was going to see, great idea. I was going to use / suggest some vellum between pages, says Lori. Awesome.
Yeah, I just use one sheet, so I don't put them between each page. I just use it. But I feel like when you finish a piece and close up your book, it's going to pull up all that loose graphite. You switch to the next page when you're ready. Maybe that habit has kept my pages fairly clean. When I draw in my pencil book here, when I'm doing these, I only use one side of the page. My Etchr, because it's such beautiful paper, I use both sides, and it's much thicker. This is I think 270 GSM or 300, but you can do on both sides, and it doesn't come through. So this is the Etchr sketchbook.
Gorgeous pieces. Love that.
This has been so much fun.
Absolutely. I think everyone. Sorry. Yeah, I think everyone can agree too. We have some here wonderful comments. I haven't done frog tutorial, so they'll be checking that out. Let me see if I've missed out anything. Okay, you've answered that one. I'm backtracking through. There we go. Lisbeth was saying mine resembles Sergeant Bilko more than a chickadee, but a huge thank you for getting me drawing back again after a long break. Let's see. Catherine mentioned pencil drawing was her favorite when she was in school, but haven't really been doing any just graphite since. Really enjoying this. So Yay! We're so glad you are enjoying this.
It's awesome.
Let's see. One last question from Catherine. Would you ever use a wax resist with graphite?
I don't think so. I don't know if that's a simple enough question to answer.
Yeah. Just because of their properties, they don't work together. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played enough with wax, so I really, I'd have to try it out. I'm not that knowledgeable in that space to give you a reasonable answer.
Gotcha. And that's valid. Maybe Catherine, you can let us know if you have tried and how that goes, like in detail. But yeah. Thank you so much.
So can I just mention one more thing?
Yep.
So
Sure.
I travel a lot with my Blue Tack, and this picks up lint and cat and dust and everything, right? What I want to mention to people is you can buy these things almost anywhere, and it is a great way to carry around your kneadable eraser. So a quick little tip, I'll show this when I do my my kit, but this has been a lifesaver for me because this ends up picking up everything, and it's just a way to protect it. So if you're doing stuff on the road and you want to protect this wonderful piece of tool, then that's the way to do it. So I'll just leave that sitting there.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. That's a great tip. Okay. So now that we're done, I think we can, Mike can switch back to his face view, if I may say that, face view. And again, I've dropped the feedback survey link in the chat, so we would definitely appreciate it if you'd leave us some feedback, how we did today, so that we know where we did good and what other areas we can improve on, both for Mike and Etchr Studio as well. So we're trying to find ways so that we can entertain you with our content. So let's see. Can't wait for the weekly classes. Awesome. All right. So now that we are done with the Q&A, it is now time for the most awaited giveaway. So since you've been good students, note takers, and followers, we will be giving away an Etchr postcard. So we have two kinds of Etchr postcard. So to one lucky winner in the chat. So this is what I have here is a 25% cotton paper postcard. I think Mike has the 100% cotton version. Yeah, that's the greeting card.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one's in tin can, and the other one is like I think it comes in 100. So yeah, it's you get to win an Etchr postcard of your choice. So this is really exciting. So you can send your mini drawings or paintings with to your loved ones. Yeah, so the mechanics is really easy. You don't need to type anything yet in the chat, but when I type go, when you see go in the chat, you need to guess the number that is written here in this piece of paper. And I made Mike choose the number so that the fate of the lucky winner is in Mike's hand, just so it feels a little fair. Yeah, more fair. And yeah, so when you see go, I want you to guess a number from 1 through 50. And when you see the word stop from my chat, that's the time that everything that I'll consider, the entries that I'll consider, is just in between those two messages, go and stop. So I'll be giving you 15 seconds to guess this number, and we will be starting right now. So that's guess the number here. So that's 15, 14, 13, 12. Ooh, that's a lot. 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Awesome. Okay. All right, so let me just backtrack through this, because obviously there's a lot. But Mike, do you want to give us some wrap up about what you're looking forward and expecting in your upcoming course?
Yeah, so it's I'm looking forward to this, and as I mentioned in the feedback question, this is an opportunity for me. It's the biggest course I've done, so I'm going to be anxious to hear feedback from all of you as we go through this. It starts in a week, and at the same time every Saturday for 5 weeks. And I'm excited about all the videos, all the work I've done on this. And Kathleen's been fantastic in helping me work through this and kind of distilling it down to what I think is a good, even if you're a beginner, I think you would find value in this. I think you would find value maybe in watching it twice. But I think it's there's some intermediate aspects of this as well. And I really enjoyed doing it. I learned a lot about myself and in teaching and compiling this. And I'm so excited to see what everyone's going to make and draw. Like, it's just going to be wonderful to see everybody doing this. And I think over 5 weeks, you're going to see the progression in your work, no doubt. As long as you honor the work, honor yourself in doing it, do the homework, watch the videos, you're going to see an improvement in 5 weeks, guaranteed.
Yeah, and I'm a witness to how much Mike has put a lot of has been putting a lot of effort into the making of this course. It's been wonderful. I myself have enjoyed watching it, even just during the review. So I can definitely assure that you are still in for a surprise, though. This live demo is already jam-packed with information. I can attest that there's been like a lot. There's going to be a lot more that you will be learning in the course too. So, yay! And all right, so we've got a bit of a interesting thing here, because someone actually got the number, but unfortunately she typed it after I typed the word stop. So we are so sorry. That's really an unlucky. But we are going to be sticking to the rules. So I'm just going to be looking at the entries that are in between stop and go. Go and stop. That I've placed, and nobody got the exact number, but somebody has entered a number that is close to the number that Mike has given. And I'm just going to open it right here. It's number 47, and the person who got the correct, not correct, but close to what Mike has, Mike's lucky number is Tineke Ross, if I'm pronouncing that right, because she got the number 48. There we go. And also, yeah, congratulations to Tineke. So for you to claim your prize, all you need to do is message us at hello@etchrstudio.com. So I'm just going to be typing that in the comment. Oops, it's in all caps. I'm sorry. hello@etchrstudio.com, and to claim your prize. So congratulations to Nikki. So feel free to screenshot this, but I got this, no worries. And to all the participants today, thank you so much for joining us as well. All right. Thank you for a wonderful class. Looking forward to next week now. Awesome. Congratulations. Enjoy. Thank you. Awesome. All right. So with that being said, I think we can wrap up. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for sticking with us till the end. And thank you so much, Mike, for being such a wonderful instructor, educator, artist today, and also inspiring us. So you didn't only teach us techniques, but also taught us the philosophical aspect of art. So I'm pretty sure everyone's pushed to try and do this course with you. So I'm really excited to see you all there. And that being said, Mike, do you have any final thoughts?
I chose 47 because I'm turning 57 next week. And so I wanted to just highlight that you're never too old to start. I didn't start till I was 40. And so I'm so glad to see all of you, regardless of where you are in your on your journey, that I hope to see you next week. And I just love doing this. And Kathleen's, as always, is a fantastic host. And I appreciate all of you being here. Thank you.
You're amazing. Advanced happy birthday to you then. This is really all so timely. That's beautiful. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mike, and advanced happy birthday. And thank you so much, everyone, for, who could ask for more? Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for sticking with us till the end. And until next time, we will see you on our course. And that being said, make more art. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.